Hello, this is Dr. Kamani, licensed clinical psychologist of Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. Welcome to my channel. We are here today for Manifesting Healing Monday for another discussion talking about ways to support Black women healing from toxic work environments. And if you've been tuning in, we've been having some very lively, powerful conversations from Black women talking about their experiences of toxic work environments and also talking about their healing journey, and wanted to make sure that we continue to provide a platform for Black women to have an opportunity to talk about and share their toxic work experiences so that, number one, we know that we're not alone and that we are not silenced, because we know that silencing is a form of oppression. And we also know, unfortunately, of experiencing toxic workplaces. So we are here to stand up and say no more. And also we are here to show that healing is possible. We want us to remember that healing is possible. We may have been knocked down, but we get up. And when we get up, we often get up even higher than we were before. And so we are joined today with another guest in terms of talking about her experiences in a toxic work environment. And I just want to preface this with saying, as you may have seen with other guests, that it's not generally just one toxic work experience. Often as Black women, we've had many toxic work experiences. And so sometimes it's even hard to identify a particular one because there's been so many. So, hello, Shaynah. How are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you. So I was just telling the audience just a little bit about the reasons that we're having these conversations. And I want to thank you, Shayna, for agreeing to be on this, have this discussion with me.
Yes.
Because we know that this type of topic can be very difficult to talk about. But I appreciate you being willing to share your story, because we know that testimony is powerful and it's healing also. So, Shayla, I'm going to turn it over for you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go into the conversation.
Yes, so my name is Shayna Sloan. I'm a lifestyle project manager, and I'm also founder and owner of For Her Record, which is actually an organization that I started to enable women who are in toxic personal and professional environments through guided journaling. And so with that, it gives them an opportunity to have a safe space to express their experiences and also build accountability for the experiences that they're going through. Not to say that their accountability goes on to blaming themselves, but understanding what has happened to them, how it's happened to them, and what they could possibly do next to mitigate the situation.
Yes. So to get some clarity from the toxic work experience, and not, like you said, not in the sense of blaming, but
Yeah.
sometimes when things happen to us, we need clarity. Like, what happened here? Because I don't want this to happen again. And so going through that process. Yes, yes. So Shayna, if you could share with the audience, maybe just, and we've talked about this before, right? That you have had multiple toxic work experiences, but the one that you would like to choose to share with the audience, if you could share that toxic work experience and the impact it had on you.
Yeah, so the toxic experience that opened my eyes to understand that there needed to be another opportunity to resolve these issues. It had occurred when I was dealing with a professional environment that involved people who had certain political views and biases based on people's backgrounds and beliefs. And this occurred about a year ago. And I was in a position where I had experienced a lot of the traits of a toxic environment, and I saw the red flags, but I did not know how to identify them because I wasn't able to actually, like, I was put in a position where I was being gaslit a lot. So I was always
Mm,
doubting my experiences because the people in my surroundings was making it seem like it wasn't real, or, it was just me. And I was the only woman of color in that environment. So
Mm.
understanding that, and then another experience was I was a
Shayna,
prostitute.
can I interrupt you for a second? And I think this would be so helpful for the audience to know what were some of the red flags and what were some of the examples of being gaslit? Because I'm sure so many of us relate to that experience, but what did it look like for you? Because it's such a mind, it really messes with your mind because you start questioning, like, am I right? Did I see something wrong? What did I do? So if you could share with the audience the red flags and the gaslighting.
Absolutely. So for starters, I was in a, well, I still am, but I'm in a new organization. But my previous organization, I was in a senior managerial role, which meant that I was also a leader. But in this realm, I was surrounded by people who may have thought differently because they had different views on people who were not within their race or had biases. So whenever I felt that something was disrespectful or questionable, like why would
Mm-hmm.
someone say this to me or say something simple like, you're strong, you'll figure it out. Like minor things like that, that I personally, I would think to myself, why would you say something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Or make, if I did bring up concerns I had with leadership, and this is just me coming as a professional person. This isn't me going crying like, oh my God, I have all these issues. This is me going, I have a concern I would like to
Mm-hmm.
address. And that
Mm-hmm.
person that I was going to, who was my leader, who did present themselves the first year I was there, that they were the person I can trust, turned on me and then made it seem as if I was the problem because I was bringing problems to the company. I was
Mm-hmm.
stuff up in my mind. I don't want to, pinpoint too much of what kind of environment I was in, but
Mm-hmm.
I was dealing with a lot of people who were pro the last administration and
Uh-huh.
who did not see my issues as a concern. And
So
also,
you were dismissed.
yeah, it was dismissed. And the crazy part was that I
Mm-hmm.
was leading a lot of projects. I'm a project manager in real life. So if I had a concern about a project I was working on because the team member I was working with at that time seemed very dismissive or disregarded the task I would assign to them,
Mm-hmm.
leadership would be like, oh, well, you'll figure it out. You're a smart woman, or, it
So
was
no support. No
no
support. Like
support.
you figured out
Strong
whatever.
Black woman, you'll figure it out. And at first I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe it's something I'm doing. Maybe I'm not
Mm-hmm.
effectively communicating to these people my concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And that in the long run, it turned out that that wasn't it. But the last red flag for me was I I was out due to a medical concern. I was out for a couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
and I had came back to work, and my employer and my employees knew of my medical concern, dealt with a loss that I
Mm-hmm.
had, and they used that against my work performance, stating that the reason I wasn't capable of doing my job anymore was because of the effects that my medical issue had caused on me. And so they would
Wow.
throw in subtle hints like, oh, well, you were out because you had a loss. Maybe that's why you're not efficient and effective with your work anymore.
Oh, okay. So
You know,
make you question your competence, right?
right, questioning my
Yeah.
competence. And this is
Yeah.
streamlined, Miss, I can do my work, Miss, proud of what I do. So,
Mm-hmm.
but making it seem like I was incompetent for things that I got awards for, incompetent for things that
Mm-hmm.
I got kudos and acknowledgments from, a lot of people, a lot of heavy hitters in
Mm-hmm.
my organization and within the realm that I'm in. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that my conversations, my venting this out I was talking to girlfriends. I was talking to my Black girlfriends. I was talking to my Latina girlfriends. I was talking to,
Mm-hmm.
I have friends of all different backgrounds, but women of color who would tell me their stories. And we were sharing stories too often.
Yes.
It was like,
Yes. It's like the similar pattern across profession, no matter where you are in the world, it's kind of the same thing.
it's the same story. And it's
Yeah.
weird to me. And it's like, well, a lot of women I know, a lot of strong women I know, a lot of women, strong women I know, we share these stories amongst each other because we don't know what the next steps are. And
Right.
sadly, I didn't know either. I was in a position where I was a pro se litigant in an EEOC case, and it was horrific because I didn't have the financial resources to get myself situated and prepared for a situation like that. But also, when you're dealing with trauma from work, healing is even worse, especially when you're preparing your own documents. You have to know what you're looking for. You're rereading.
Yes, and especially when you're still in the environment, right, Shayna?
Yes.
Right? So you're still in the environment being traumatized and trying to heal. That's not even possible.
And the crazy part is that no one acknowledges that you are dealing with trauma and that you are trying to heal. And that was one thing I had the biggest problem with, because so many people always called me strong because of the work I do, because of who I am. But not a lot of people understood what I was dealing with emotionally and how that affected my household, because I have children and, you know, all of these things that are involved with it. So I finally realized, especially after my case and going through that headache and the corruption with all of that, that the key to when you're dealing with any toxic workplace experience is documenting it, and not just writing how you feel that day. Right? Talk. Write what's in your head that triggered you. Write how you felt. Write how you would like to resolve that issue. You know, putting those details, the location, if it was online or not, because little details like that do matter. And if you're writing it every day like you would in a journal, you would understand, okay, wait, I'm writing this on the third day. Something wrong now, because I've been writing about this problem for the third time. But we're so comfortable, and I know, like, with me, I love being around people. I mean, even in general, I'm a people person. So sometimes I like to consider the fact that maybe they didn't mean what they said. And I kept second. And I noticed a lot of women do that. We always
we do. We do.
Maybe not. Maybe this didn't happen. Or maybe maybe it was me, right? Maybe.
Second guessing.
Yeah, and so I didn't know what all the traits of a toxic workplace experience was, but because I was I am a survivor of domestic violence. I know what a survivor of domestic violence looks like. So from there, I was able to compare the two.
Wow.
And outline, because physical abuse is detrimental to your health, is detrimental to your mentality, is detrimental to your workload, it's detrimental to a lot of things that happen. But that was why I went forward, and I just wrote the diary. I was writing it out, and I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I really need to identify when I'm experiencing these things, and how do I get through it? And just being able to go through that process, write it out. And actually, I gave it to a few of my girlfriends who were dealing with similar situations, and they just beta tested it for me, and it worked out. So
so this is truly this product came from your experience, right? It's been tested out. And you know, it's interesting, Shayna, because you talked about when these things happen, as women, we've often been socialized to second guess, question, well, maybe they didn't mean it, number one. Number two, as Black people and as Black women, we're often taught, don't cause any problems, you know what I mean, kind of stay underneath the surface, don't be, you know, confrontational, because of the angry Black woman stereotype. And you know, what's interesting with you, Shayna, is that they use the stereotype about being the strong woman against you. Right? So in the sense, like, yeah, you're strong, you can handle it, we're not going to help you. So nobody has your back. And so this stuff just kept happening. And so you said, you know what? Let me talk to my circle of friends to reality test what is really going on here. And that is so important, because with gaslighting, it makes you question reality. And so when you have other people who are able to reality test, say, Shayna, that's not you, that's them, they're crazy, right? That is healing in and of itself. And it helps us recognize, like you talked about, when you're documenting, and I would definitely say that's anyone. If you are in a toxic work experience, document. And when I say document, document in a safe space, not on your work computer.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Document on your personal computer. And what I even did was I would document on my personal computer and I would email it to myself. So
Okay.
that way it was like a backup trail of it, right? And so please document. It's so important. So Shayna, you talked about EEOC, you talked about the betrayal of someone you trusted. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because I know many of us, myself included, have experienced the pain of betrayal by people, not that we thought that they were our friends, but we had a level of respect for them, or we thought that they had our back or whatever, and it comes to find out that they really did not.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about what was the betrayal and how did that impact you?
Absolutely. Well, my betrayal, sadly, was prior to the experience that I was just explaining. But the
Mm-hmm.
EEOC, that happened with a skin folk that was not a kinfolk, is what I like to call it,
Ah,
because and
yes.
it was crazy to me because I was extremely ambitious. I really did look up to this woman, and she kind
Mm.
of took advantage of that and used it against me. And at
Ooh.
the time, this is prior to I got into any leadership roles. I think I was an analyst at that time. Um,
Uh-huh.
I was encouraged to take advantage of, the technological resources involved, and, trying to be innovative and try to be ambitious, and, oh, I love this.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do. And
Mm.
she saw that I love what I do. She let me take advantage of what I love what I do, but then she used it against me to terminate me because and the tools I was utilizing was not a part of my job. And
Wow.
it was like a Dr. Jekyll, Dr.
Like,
Hyde
who is this
moment.
person?
And
Who is this person?
this person, she was my supervisor at the time.
Wow.
And she was like probably 20 years, maybe 30. I think she was 30 years older than me. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a respect for her. I looked up to
Mm-hmm.
her because she was in a position that I was like, oh, I would love to. And then the work that I was given was outdated because I'm like, why are y'all still using
Mm-hmm.
email? Like, I could automate this, right? Because I'm the
Uh-huh.
automation queen. And I did. And then I lie to you not, when I was done with the project, like when it was closed out, she pulled a number on me. She pulled.
Wow. So when you made things better for the organization, then you were punished and it came out of like left field. So
Yeah.
you're wondering like, what in the heck just happened here?
Yeah.
Right?
It was the
Yeah.
lights on.
Yeah, it's like disorienting, right? Like, is this really happening? And then for it to happen by someone who looks like us can
Mm-hmm.
be extremely painful. So, all of you, if you have not seen the video that I did, the interview I did with my friend Latanya Tolan talking about all skin folk and kin folk,
Yeah,
please watch that
I saw that one.
because that is so true. It sometimes we align with, or sometimes we look up to people who look like us because there's an expectation that
Mm-hmm.
as Black people that we will look out for one another and help one another. And when that doesn't happen, that can be particularly devastating.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shayna, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit in terms of what was that moment that you realized, I got to get out of here. This is harming me. I got this EOC thing. I got to get out of here. How could you tell? What was that moment?
Um, I guess I'm gonna have to give away a little bit more than what I'm saying. So I was working for the federal government at the time, and it
Hmm.
was the federal government shutdown from the last administration, and it was during Christmas. And my supervisor, that was after she tried, like she gave me a low performance rating first, but she gave me a low performance rating on job duties that were not related to my job.
Mm.
So that was flag number one. Flag number
Hmm.
two was that it was the federal shutdown and I still had to go into work even though I wasn't getting paid. Number three, number three was,
Wow.
the third one was, she had my leave audited. And what that means is that if I wanted to utilize my leave to take off for work, and at the time my
Mhm.
kids were really small, I couldn't do it because they were recalculating my leave, so I basically had a zero balance.
What?
That was the next one. The last straw. The last straw. The last straw was when I finally did get a chance to come back in and come back into office. This was the day that the federal shutdown was removed. So the last administration said, we're done with the shutdown. This is January 2018. She waited, because I actually had, the director and I had a good relationship. So it was my supervisor, her boss, the boss, and then the director. The director was a sister, and she was really dope. Like, she was all for me, but she didn't know
what was going on.
My supervisor saw me talking to the director, and she waited for the director and everyone else to clear out the office, because that day I had stayed a little late to finish my project. Once I was done, I sent her the email. She calls me into the office and then sets me up to terminate my position. And it was kind of like, I really thought I was in the Twilight Zone at that point. And it was crazy because the letter she gave me, like I said, it was kind of like the performance review. It didn't match up with my job, what I was supposed to be doing. So it was, those were all the signs. But when they were occurring, I saw it, but I wasn't paying attention to it. So I saw this woman was doing things detrimentally. I saw this woman was intentionally trying to hurt me, but I didn't want to believe it because I had no reason to think she had a purpose to feel that way towards me.
And you respected her, right? So sometimes we see things and we're like it doesn't sit well in our spirit. We're like, right? But we don't want to believe it, and it ends up hurting us. And so I've talked about that before, even in that video where I talked about all skin folk and kinfolk. There was a Black woman, and I was seeing all these signs. People were telling me things. I'm like, I didn't want to believe it because she was another Black woman, right? But it's so important for us to pay attention to the signs.
But I think that, and you are speaking on so many levels, I think that does go with everything when it comes to our culture as a people, because I know if I go in certain areas and I'm talking to another sister and she responds back, we have a way of communicating. It's a cultural thing. Even with the brothers, like we know when we get together and we all have fun, even if we don't know each other, you know, we hear a song playing in the grocery store, you know, we're probably or doing something funny together. But even in the workplace, I do have right where I am now, I have great superior women of color that I'm working with, and I never want this relationship to deteriorate or anything. But in that environment, it did open my eyes to the fact that, you know, the whole skin folk thing, but also to be cautious and be wary and separate and set those boundaries between the two. And, you know, I was assuming the wrong things about someone based off of the fact that we share the same, you know, background or the same, you know, racial background. But in reality, she and I were on two different worlds. I just didn't see it. You know?
And what's interesting, Shaynah, is that, you know, when I talk about the expectation is that we know as a people how hard we have to fight to get anything, especially certain jobs, right? So we know how we have to fight and have to continue to fight, and people are questioning our competence, all the microaggressions, all that stuff, right? So when we get in situations, we're assuming that the person or other Black people have compassion for that. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's a sense of competition, or you may have been seen as a threat, or whatever that might have been, right? And she kind of just took you out knowing that she respected her and admired her. So kind of feeling like you were blindsided, right? So as you were going through this, can you share with the audience a little bit, what were some of the symptoms that you were experiencing in this toxic work environment? Because it takes a toll on us, you know, in so many different ways. Physically, my hair started falling out. You know, I was getting like nosebleed. It was just crazy, right? So like physically, mentally, spiritually, how was it impacting you in that toxic work environment?
At that time, I was doing undergrad. I was in my senior year of undergrad. And of course, I'm a single parent. And my schedule was already crazy because I was doing classes
Mhm.
Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in the evenings, and then, Saturdays if, I could find a setter. So that alone, me balancing was going bananas. And
Right.
my children at the time were so young that they didn't understand why mommy was frustrated, why mommy was upset,
Um,
why was mommy, because I have a very compassionate relationship with my children to where I want them to always know that my job is to keep you safe and that we have
mhm,
this open and we have this honest relationship, right?
mhm,
But they were
mhm.
too young to understand the strain and the toll it was putting on me mentally because I was getting
Yeah,
frustrated easily. I was crying.
yeah, yeah.
I had a nervous breakdown in the office one time because of the pressure that I was being put under, and
Wow.
I did have to go to the hospital. So it
You
was like,
did?
yeah, I had to go to the hospital because of it.
Wow.
I was just like, I was so, because she kept denying the fact that I felt like I was being, that she was pinpointing me. Like
That you were being targeted.
she was targeting me, and it was weird because I didn't know where it came from. It literally
Hmm.
happened out of nowhere, and she would assign me tasks, but wouldn't give me any guidance on how to do it. Or she would give me work from somebody else that has a completely different, like they're in IT and I'm an analyst. I don't know how to map a network, or well, I
She
do,
was
but
setting you up for failure.
she
She
was
was setting you up for failure.
intentionally
Yeah.
setting me up for failure. And then little did I know, once all this had happened, that the paperwork, like there was emails she was sending to HR complaining about the work that she was giving me that was not the work that I was supposed to do. So this whole time,
Wow.
and when she's giving me this work, I'm thinking to myself, okay, she's giving it to me. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do this. Can you please help me? And then she'll tell me, oh, ask so and so would not be in the office. So and so is not available, or so and so does not respond to my emails. So it was
Hmm.
kind of like she intentionally set me up for failure. But
Yeah. And she was conspiring against you, right? Because she sent emails to human resources. Like, so the whole thing, it was like a real, real betrayal.
yeah,
Yes.
it was confusing because at the time I didn't know how to completely identify microaggressions. I didn't know completely how to identify toxic characteristics within the workplace. I
Hmm.
understand that micromanagement and all of those other terms that are involved. I because my mother didn't raise me to think that way. I mean, my mother
Right.
raised me to understand that good and bad is bad, but my mother didn't.
Right.
She didn't raise me to articulate being so evil. Like it was just not a thing for her.
Right.
That's not
It's like
how.
I can't even conceive of that. Like, how could you even be that way? And you know what's so funny, Shayna? I want to just say this right quick, right? It's inconceivable sometimes. I've had this conversation many times because I never, I can't imagine intentionally causing harm to someone else.
Right.
I cannot imagine, and if I did something unintentionally to cause someone harm, not to own up to it, to apologize. And
Yeah.
so I'm thinking, how do people do this?
Yeah.
But then I also think, well, many people have their own trauma. So hurt people hurt people. And many people are so miserable that instead of dealing with their own misery, they project it out. Right. And so you're going through this with this woman. It was just really overwhelming. And so when you felt that sense of overwhelm at work, did anybody support you as this was happening?
No. And I say that only because at the time we were in the process of teleworking. So a lot of my coworkers
Mm.
got to telework, but I was the only one who had to come in the office. So
What?
it was a horrible experience. But I will say this much. Like I said, that experience led me to For Her Record. It led me to the Die Hurry. It led me to, and I'm gonna be honest with you. In the beginning, I was a little afraid to tell my story because my friends, I have a very small circle of friends. So
Mm.
telling them was comfortable for me, but talking to
Mhm.
other women was kind of like I was exposing myself. And I was nervous
Mm.
because, I'm a very private person, but
Mhm.
after hearing other women go, "Oh, really? Because this happened to me at my job," and it was
Yes,
like, why is this like
yes,
this is the stories that we have when we're amongst each other, when we're in these
yeah,
environments and people are doing these things to us, and it's not fair, but at the same time it opens your eyes to know that you need to be cognizant, that
yeah.
that first time somebody says something to you because, says something about your skin color or how, anything that's off that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with your job or your work, write it down.
Yes,
Write it down.
exactly. And Shayna, you talked about that experience, as horrific as it was, you grew from that. So
Yeah.
you were able to produce and do things as a result from that. And that's healing. That's an example of healing and sharing your story, even though many times, many of us, myself included, very private. But it gets to a certain point where you feel compelled to tell your story. Because when we don't tell our stories, then it feels like we're ashamed of it, or we didn't do anything wrong, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like when you think about abuse, right? Many times we don't say anything when
Yeah.
something happens to us because we feel like we caused it in some ways. So this is liberating to be able to say, no, this is what happened to me and it was wrong. The other thing, Shayna, that you talked about is, your small circle of people knew, but also the more you start talking to other Black women, you will see how many Black women have this experience.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we need to be able to speak out, right? We need to be able to say, this is happening to us, because sometimes people say, oh, it's just her, or she just has a problem, or she's
Right.
difficult to work with, or,
Right.
right? So kind of just putting shade on you, but not looking at why is this happening to so many Black women?
And
It's not just because this, and this.
right. And I don't mean, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but
No, no, go on.
my so after that lovely experience, the one after, which is the one previous to my happy place where I am now, I was dealing with people who were part of January 6th. I was dealing with
Ooh,
people who openly shared their pride and joy. And I was dealing with people who, me as the only Black senior project manager in that environment, if I had an opinion, or if I knew that, maybe something would cause an issue to a project, I was considered aggressive. If anytime I had
aggressive.
a voice,
Really?
that's the term, and that is the term that is always utilized when I know that somebody is going against me. They start using that word, and I don't know
Ah,
how common it is. I do know I have other African American female friends who do
mhm.
have people who use those terms, but that's when you know that they're plotting against you. The second someone
Yeah.
is aggressive, because you know that 1 + 1 = 2, not
Hmm.
4, and that they're
Hmm.
calculating things wrong, or that there's a way to articulate the work, but it's not done properly. If someone puts you in a
Hmm.
position or corners you and tries to make it seem like you're the monster, you're the problem,
Yes.
and, and
Yes.
then and then you believe it because you're trying to be
Yes.
a good employee. Oh, you know what? Maybe
Yes.
I am aggressive. Maybe no, you are not aggressive.
Right. That's their stuff, not yours. Don't receive that projection. Don't
No.
receive it. And it's not really labeling, but it's a way to put us in our place,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because it's like, well, I'm going to call you aggressive. And people know what happens to people like you
When
who
they
are labeled as aggressive, right? And so then it's like this undercurrent of like a threat, in a
mm-hmm.
way that you feel like your job is at jeopardy. So you're thinking, okay, what do I need to do
Yep.
to make sure? So now it's like overcompensation
Yep.
to really show you're a certain way, but it's nonsense. It's
Yeah.
nonsense. And so this is often what happens when people are intimidated by us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they talk about, well, we're intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're intimidated because of your insecurity. And
Right.
because you are intimidated, now you're projecting your stuff on me and calling me aggressive to put me in my place. So it's also interesting when you think about it, Shayna, in terms of think about just our history in this country. It's always been about putting us in our place.
Mm-hmm.
So no
Oh, yeah.
matter, how much money we have, what position we have, what education, it's
Mm-hmm.
always that sense of like, I'm putting you in your place. And
Mm-hmm.
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
It has always.
Yes.
Yeah, it is always. It's always, and it's sad that we have to go through it, but that has always been the case. And don't you outshine someone who
Ooh,
feels intimidated, because at that point you're on the chopping block. There's a target on your back.
right.
It should never be that way. I
It
don't
should not.
and now we're in this wave where everybody's quitting their jobs because I'm not putting up with the toxic this and the toxic, and I love it. I absolutely love it, because you should never stay in a place that you do not feel is healthy for your mental health and for
Yes.
mental health. And like you said,
Yeah.
someone calls you aggressive, now you're trying to find ways to overcompensate, and then you start exhausting yourself. And now you're trying to, because you're
Yeah.
trying to go around what you normally would do that you know is right.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
And then when you leave the job, then you're thinking about everything that happened, right? And then when you go home, you're still thinking about it. And you talked about like if you're a mother. So some kind of way it kind of comes out in terms of our relationships with our family.
yeah.
So that's why we have to talk about these toxic work experiences and recognize the impact that it's having on us.
Oh, yeah.
So Shayna, you were like, no more, right? You did a lot of other things though that many other people haven't done. Like you went to ELC, like you were like, right?
Yeah.
So Shayna, can you share with the audience also what has been your healing journey? Because, you know, when I talk about healing, and I always emphasize healing is possible, I want people to know healing is an ongoing process. So it's not like you did some and now you're healed, right? It's an ongoing process. But what has been your healing journey in relation to this toxic work experience or experiences?
Yeah. No. So one of the healing journeys, of course, was when I started writing out the diary, and that was just because it kept me occupied, and it also gave me the opportunity to think about how you can really outline your experiences. And like I said, that's what my friends were going through, what I was going through. And then another item I was doing was therapy. I was going to therapy. I had someone who was licensed to tell me this is jacked up. And I had a really great therapist who was a sister who, she said this to me and it stuck with me forever. She said, your job is not who you are, it is what you do. And she,
absolutely.
And it just, from there, it went.
Absolutely.
I was like, okay. She was like, don't let these people kill you, because it's something as you being stressed out, your body tenses up. Now your shoulders are shrugged. You're breathing differently. So then all of a sudden I got into to meditation, because meditation helps you with your breathing, which relaxes your body, which removes all of this cloudy thought processes that you have when you're in stress. So there was a lot of steps involved with it. And then also just surrounding myself with people who supported me and who understood what I was going through. I have people who were in my life during these times and trials and tribulations, but they didn't get it. And it's okay that they didn't get it. But it kind of stung a little, because some of them were Black people. Some of them were Black men, Black women. I was thinking, oh, we get it, but not everybody gets it. So your journey is your journey. It doesn't have to be everybody else's journey, but just know that, like you said, it's not your fault. It's never your fault, but you should be accountable for how you respond to things.
Yes. So when we think about trauma, we can't control bad things happening to us, but we can control how we choose to respond, right? And so therapy, you know, helps in terms of identifying the different options, and it helps you to really understand what is really happening, what part of it has nothing to do with you, right? And also, Shaynah, you talked about it helped you center what is the true core of who you are. It's not your job. It's not your job. But many times those people that were acting that way, they take their job as if that is who they are, right? So that defines who they are, and that's how they become so nasty. So for you, you were like, no, and I'm so glad you said therapy, Shaynah, because we know in our community, you know, even with COVID, more of us have been going to therapy, but there's still a stigma of mental health. And so the more of us that talk about therapy is good, therapy is healing, right? That hopefully more of us get healed or start the healing process, because we have to recognize as Black people that we are constantly being assaulted, you know, just even things we see in the news, right? So it didn't happen to us, but things that have happened and now we're injured again. So it's this constant sense of being injured. And I love what you said, Shaynah, that each person's healing journey is their own. And so they need to take ownership of that and do what they need to do. But you also talked about having a circle of support, which is so important in terms of having that group around us, because they can help buffer all that toxicity around us, right? So all of these powerful things. So Shaynah, as we're winding down, I'm wondering if you could share with the audience how to access your resource that you talked about.
Yes, so you can find the Dihery. It sounds just like that, Dihery at forherrecord.com. And there's also resources on there on how to process. And the diary is not just for workplace. You can use it for professional and personal experience as well. But it's on forherrecord.com.
Awesome. And I'll include that information in the description section. And I want to say thank you, Shayna, again for sharing your story. I know that at first you were like, do I do it? But you did a fantastic job. And know that you sharing your story is helping to heal a lot of other Black women as well. So I so appreciate you. So audience, please check out her Dihery, right? And I'll have the information about how to access that in the description section. And also for the audience to know that I do have a job coaching program for Black women who are interested in leaving toxic jobs, but there's some healing that needs to happen before you're in the place to really identify where is it that you want to go. And once you get to that place, are you taking that garbage with you, right? So how do we process that stuff so you don't take that garbage to the next spot, right? And so if you want more information about that, or you would like to schedule a consultation call with me, please go to my website, Lifting Us We Climb Consulting, Wellness Services. And that's the YouTube channel, Wellness Services. So if you want to see all the videos I've done with Black women talking about being in toxic work environments, and my website is actually liftingasweclimbconsulting.com. So again, thank you, Shaynah, for joining today and sharing your story. And to everyone else, I'll be back next Monday with another guest talking about these experiences. And I want us to leave with knowing that healing is possible. Shaynah and I, are examples of that we are healing from toxic work environments. And also, I hope that you are able to see that sometimes when we get knocked down, it hurts us, and we need to be able to acknowledge we have been hurt. So Shaynah talked about going to therapy. I have gone to therapy as a therapist, right? So when we have been hurt, we need to be able to acknowledge we've been hurt. As Black women, oftentimes we're so strong and we don't want to admit that we've been hurt, or we're told that we're not praying it away, or whatever that might be, right? If you know you're being harmed, please get the help. Please get the support that you need from a licensed mental health professional, okay? And so you can find us, we're out here. So you can go to your insurance company. You can ask for a Black female therapist. You can go on Psychology Today. You can go on Therapy for Black Girls. There's also the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. So there's so many different resources. And I see so much. Yes, we all need therapy. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. That is so true. Thank you for saying that. So I hope that everyone has a good rest of your day, and we will be talking soon. And we're thinking about therapy, and also I'm thinking about what you talked about too, Shaynah, is how is it as Black people, as Black women, we're incorporating more joy in our lives and really reconnecting to our joy, because living this life, with all the racism and all the things that we either experience or we see can take a toll on us, right? So how do we reconnect to our joy? And my hope is that everyone, is taking the time to do something to reconnect to your joy. And I'm not saying going on a vacation. I'm saying simple things you can do to reconnect to your joy. Okay? So thank you again, everyone. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.